Welcome, Sojourners, to the Women's Leadership Mindset Series presented by Teresa K. Page, LLC. My name is Teresa Page. I am your host and looking forward to spending these next few moments with all of you. We have a lot of work to get done on today, but first, allow me to invite you to connect with me by subscribing to my website and YouTube channel. Connect and follow me on LinkedIn, and always feel free to contact me directly via email at teresakpagellc@outlook.com. So what is our goal? Well, as an author, speaker, coach, and mentor, my mission is to help professional women renew their leadership mindset with fresh fire and purpose through the mediums of leadership development and coaching services. However, the Women's Leadership Mindset Series is a new initiative intended to spotlight powerful women leaders and how they serve the world through their professions and purpose. So with the goal to help women realize their unfulfilled dreams and re-energize the leaders they always were, this platform is designed to enhance, empower, educate, equalize, and even emancipate, as our special guests share their entrepreneurial stories, provide valuable resources, and guidance in a caring, professional, and impactful manner. So, let's get down to business. Well, all right. In today's video, it is my pleasure to welcome to my virtual stage Renee Hope Cooper, speaker and transformative speech empowerment coach of Plantation, Florida. Renee is a communications expert and has been a speaker for 15 plus years, raising millions of dollars in corporate fundraising. Along her journey, many executives and leaders on all levels would ask her how she enjoys speaking so much and how they could consistently appear more authentic. Renee turned her lifelong love for speaking and educating to mentoring, coaching, and training individuals, teams, and organizations to improve their sales and leadership skills by discovering, developing, and amplifying her voice, the most important instrument we were given. Renee uses a unique and customized interactive approach to help her audiences create authentic and engaging connections with their audiences, big or small. By using science-backed techniques, including improvisation, coupled with specific voice techniques and her own story, overcoming adversity in the workplace, Renee is passionate about improving communications in the workplace by getting her clients and audiences to walk through the discomfort of speaking or working through conflict by doing a deep dive in communications training so they can reach the next level of their success journey, personally or professionally. Renee is a Toastmaster through Toastmaster International and a graduate of Dale Carnegie Leadership Program. Renee is a speaker for the United Way of Broward County and has been a speaker for Eagles Haven in Coral Springs, Florida. Appears on virtual stages, leads communication masterclasses on Eventbrite, and runs a private communications coaching practice as a transformative speech empowerment coach, supporting individuals and leaders in all industries in person and via Zoom. Renee, an educator by heart, was an improv teacher and has led improv classes at her local community center to give back to her community. So to connect with Renee, you may reach her on her website at www.stepintoyourvoice.com. You can connect with her via email at info@stepintoyourvoice.com. You may reach her by phone at 954-295-7433. You may also connect with her on social media with LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram at Renee Hope Cooper. You may also connect with her on TikTok at Step Into Your Voice. And please also schedule a coffee chat at calendly.com/Renee Hope Communications -coaching/ quick-chat-coffee-talk. So we'll bring all of this information along with Renee's free gift before we go. But first, I want to say, welcome, Renee. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Listening to you, you have such a soothing voice as you were reading my introduction. You sound like a great storyteller yourself, Teresa. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, it's an awesome opportunity and a pleasure and an honor to be with you on today. I am so excited about our conversation, and I'm just looking
Thank you.
forward to all of the great information that you're going to give our audience, and especially for those who are aspiring to be public speakers just like you. So we're going to go ahead and get down to business. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks. Well, I've always known that I was an educator, and as I started going through my journey, I really wanted to be the next Jewish Oprah Winfrey. That was my dream, and I unfortunately let the world crush my confidence, so I let that go. But one thing remained to be true. I knew that I was always the quirky gal who loved to speak. I loved to be in front of audiences, and I'm one of the weird ones, right? That loves to communicate, where I know for most they don't. So I was looking for the right jobs. I couldn't land in them. Nothing felt right for me until I was invited to a lunch and learn where I listened to a woman speak about the issues in our community with a call to action to give money. And that was for the United Way of New York City. And I looked at her, I listened to her, and I said, that's it. That's my job. That's what I'm going to do. Within 48 hours, I got the job, and I was speaking every single day, most times 3 times a day, for the next 7 years or 8 years there. And then my journey in corporate fundraising continued for the next, I don't know, can't even count right now. And I'm married to a math teacher, but I've been in the corporate fundraising space for about 15 years. And when I started my career as a speaker, I bombed for the first 2 years. And it's funny, they didn't teach us, they told us the message, right? But they didn't teach us the delivery. And so for the first 2 years, I was very immersed in a lot of self development. I took a Tony Robbins class, and this little 5'2" girl from Brooklyn, and that's with heels, thought that she should sound like Tony Robbins because he's motivating and he delivers results. Well, Teresa, after doing that, people tuned me out. I was too loud and too proud, and no one was listening to what I had to say. And the pockets were not being, people were not going into their pockets. So my goals were not being met. And I remember a manager had said to me, because they didn't listen to me speak, but they had said, you might need to tweak how you're speaking, but without guidance. But that's when I learned through going to Toastmasters the power of story. And I realized that I was speaking the same way to people who were at the executive level in pharmaceutical companies, and I was speaking the same way to people who worked for waste management, managers and supervisors at 4:30 in the morning. And it clicked. That's when I realized I better change my story to fit my audience because the message is not about me, it's about them. And I traveled down the path of storytelling without even knowing it, without even putting a label on it. And so I started to become more connected to each audience because I was able to understand what is it that they really need to know? What do they really want to know? And how do I let them know that I get them and that with their support, we can make things better? And so my fundraising goals were not only met, they were exceeded. And then they started to make me raise more money. That's the way it is in fundraising. The more you make, the more they want you to raise. And then I would have to say, I was into my career for about 5 years when I was speaking to a bunch of executives at a big pharmaceutical firm. It was my second year on the account. And here I am. I look nothing like them. I'm making 1/8 of their salary, but I knew that I was of influence. I knew that my message struck because I had the engagement of most of the room. And at the end of my presentation, I had a man come up to me, shake my hand, and say, That was amazing. You are amazing for someone of your size. Teresa, my
That's
mouth
powerful.
dropped. And thank goodness I was taking a stand-up comedy class because I shot back with some witty remark that a New Yorker would, not to embarrass him, but to kind of let him know, like, you're messing with the wrong person, even while I was being professional. And in that moment, I knew that I had a gift, but I also said to myself, who am I to be that amazing? And so I suffered from imposter syndrome for 20 years. 20 years of being misaligned, of staying in fundraising and not knowing what to do or how to do it until I stepped into the wrong job. And I released that job. I fired that boss. I said, this is it. I am meant to help other people because that was the journey that I was on. People were constantly asking me when I would speak, how do you seem authentic? How do you do this every day? I have to speak and I hate it. How do you seem so natural? How do you do it? And I couldn't answer their question because I wasn't ready. I didn't have the answers. And that's what catapulted me right before I turned 50 to say, it's now or never. It's time to start. I have a gift. I need to give it back. I want to be of impact to the world. I hope that answers your question.
It does. It absolutely does, Renee. I just and that's a powerful story, and thank you for giving us some insight. You said a couple of things there that you, after that exchange, after giving such a powerful um, public message of how the individuals then came up to you and said something that was unsavory. But it put you in the space for 20 years of imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you're back in this space again, how are you redeeming that time? Can you give us a little bit of more insight? I know we're going to get down into the business and everything that you do, but
Right.
how are you redeeming those 20 years?
Yeah. That's a great question. I would be remiss if I didn't have moments where I kick myself and say, "Wow, if only I started then, where would I be? How many more people would I be impacting?" But I do believe that that is part of my path and the reason why I am able to impact people to stop suffering from imposter syndrome because the message is not about them. It's really about what impact is my message making on the people that I need to impact, whether you're in sales, whether you're in ministry, whether you're selling a service or a product that you believe in. It's not about you, but it is your message. And so I've redeemed myself by being able to always know that, yes, people are looking at me, but they're not listening for me, they're listening for them. They're listening for how is this impacting their lives, their job, their careers. And that's how I've redeemed it by knowing it's about being of service and being of impact to as many people as I can to help boost their own self trust in stopping the need to sound rehearsed and stopping the need to sound like anyone else other than their own self.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Renee, can you just share with us, because I know that a lot of entrepreneurs right now and individuals like myself, we're learning right now that being able to be invited on certain stages or certain platforms where you have the opportunity to speak, for those of us who may not have had the formal training and development that you have had the pleasure of having with Toastmasters and with Dale Carnegie. Um, from a high level point of view, what tips would you give us, um, emerging entrepreneurs or authors who are having to address particular audience from a high level point of view? What tips can you give us so that we are making sure that we are making sure that we're making the message about the audience and not about
Yeah,
us? Because
this
oftentimes
is
we feel like
brilliant
we do have
question.
to tell everybody what are we doing, all of that
This is
information
brilliant.
dumping and different things
Yes.
like that. What tips would
Yep.
you give us from a high level point of view?
Oh, great. And I hope everyone has a pen and a journal or they're able to write this down, create a note right now in your phone. Tip number one, what is your why? What is your why? Why are you sharing this message? And that's something that you should be able to start practicing within no more than 45 seconds, right? It almost becomes like, what is the purpose for me speaking today? Whether it's on a podcast, whether it's on a virtual stage, whether it's in front of a conference or a quick meeting. What is your why? What is the ultimate message that if all else fails, you want that audience to leave behind? And this is very different than the way we learned to present, right, Teresa? We learned, well, what is my opening? What do I want to say first? What are my 2 points? And then what is my conclusion? I want you all to throw that out the window starting now. We start by going backwards, knowing the end. What is our reason? What is our why? Because once we become really passionate and clear about our why, guess what happens within our communication? We become more concise, we become clearer, and we become more impactful because we know deep down what our ultimate message is. That's the beginning. That would be step number 1. Can you see that helping your listeners or anyone that you know?
Well, I can't speak for the listening audience, but that definitely helps. Helps me. So I am student number 1, and I'm definitely putting this down in my notes. I love the way you said that, to be able to start with the end, getting that ultimate message out to the front, front forward,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
making sure that we're
Because,
making that. Oh, yes, absolutely.
yeah, right. So because now once you have step 1, now you have step 2. You know, okay, what are the 2 most important points or things that you need to convey to get you to that journey called the end, which is your why? So that would be tip number 2. What are the 2 most important things? Because, one of the things that's fascinating about communication, Teresa, we learn that people and our brains cannot digest more than 3. 3 is the magic number. If you start dumping too much information, you are going to be disconnected from your audience from the very beginning because you've given them too much. The mind thinks in terms of 3 things because we know that if it's more than that, they're going to forget everything. They're going to be all over the place. They're not going to know where you are taking them. So step number 2 is have your 2 main points for any message that you wish to say. And point number 3 would be grab them instantly. Your introduction needs to be something powerful, either through a story, because stories sell and products tell. Put yourself in that story. What does that message mean for you? How does that message impact you? Because once you share it that way, you now have your audience drawn into you. Because if you're sharing how it impacts you, they're seeing how it could possibly impact them, as opposed to starting off by telling your audience, this impacted me because. No, no, no. It's like sharing a story about what that impact felt like for you, creating visuals so they can see that you're taking them down the road of your message. Does that help?
It absolutely helps. Thank you for giving us those 3 strong points. And I trust that the audience are taking notes. What is your why? Start at the end. 2 most important points, as well as grab your audience instantly. Making sure you're
Right,
starting out with that story. That is so awesome.
right.
Thank you
So
for giving
you're
that to
welcome. So
us.
the actual, if I can just add, the beginning actually comes at the end. Can you see that? Your why is first. Your 2 points are next, because once you have that clear, then you can think, can I catch my audience? Can I engage them the most with an impactful story about whatever I'm sharing? Or can I engage them the most with an impactful question, which in the speaking world we call the hook, which can go something like this. Teresa, or if I'm speaking to a large audience, can you imagine a time when or did you ever think about an engaging question, an engaging thought? That's the end, but it really is the beginning, and that's how we work backwards when we're giving a speech. or a talk or a message.
That is so powerful. Thank you for giving us that insight there,
You're
Renee.
welcome.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, can you, before we get into your business, which we are definitely getting ready to take a deep dive into in just a second, can you maybe give us some understanding why most leaders, and I know that you work with leaders, why leaders have that difficulty with being able to convey a story to their audience, or maybe their audience is their team or someone
Yes,
in their community? What are some of the
yes,
top things that leaders have difficulty as far as being able to
yes,
convey their message to their
yes.
audiences?
This is so great because I'm dealing with this right now with a very high level periodontist that I'm helping. People in authority, people in higher roles tend to feel they have to display, and this is not a bad thing, but this is just the way they've been conditioned, that they need to demonstrate their authority by having a certain presence, by sounding a certain way. And therefore, sometimes leaders get caught up in feeling that they have to present in a certain way, they have to present in a certain voice. And that right there takes away from their ability to be the authentic person that they are. And by being able to shift from feeling that way to saying, if I were speaking to an audience that if I were to pretend they were 5 years old and they know nothing about this, how would I speak to them? That's one of the exercises I actually use when I'm coaching adults in all industries and all titles. I have them speak to me as if they're 5 years old because we notice when we become more kid-like and when we think we're speaking to kids, we take on a sense of wonder. We take on a sense of being more expressive. We let go that seriousness of being a leader, of having authority, and we're able to connect with people better because we're able to just be and share our message in an easy and palpable way. So one of the things that leaders can do is to start maybe flipping the lid off of, okay, I know I'm a leader and I'm at this level, but I'm speaking to an audience that I want to connect with. Well, there we go. Know your audience. If you want to connect with them, what's the one thing that's going to connect you to them? How can I show them that I'm a real person? How can I speak to them in such a way that I seem approachable or likable or trustworthy? And those are some of the ways that leaders can practice that. Stop thinking that you need to sound rehearsed and professional. And like I was saying, I'm supporting a very high level periodontist. He actually helps very famous people all over Miami and New York City. He's like, Renee, I always seem to sound like when I speak, I'm so aggressive or professional, and I want to be able to share certain topics so that people will listen to me on Instagram more. And that was one of the exercises I did with him. I'm like, let's pretend you're 5. How would you share with me, if I'm 5, how to take care of my teeth? And not just brushing, but real dental hygiene. He became so relaxed, Teresa, on this video. His shift was unbelievable. When he saw it for himself, he couldn't believe it. He's like, I'm usually not so approachable, but in this video, I can see now I'm more approachable because I'm just being myself.
I think that is so powerful. And I like that scenario. Pretend that you're talking to a 5-year-old. I can imagine that his voice probably got so much lighter. His
So much
hands
lighter.
probably,
His
yeah.
his pace, he slowed down his pace. You could tell he wasn't in his head, which is what a lot of leaders do. They're in their head calculating, what do I need to say in such a way to make me sound like the leader that I am? And in doing that, they're actually causing a disconnect with their audiences.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So thank you for continuing to give us additional insight, Renee. So let's get into the business. And how, first and foremost, can you talk to us a little bit about how you first engage, or how do you come across working with high level leaders, first and foremost, and also give us a deep dive as far as what it looks like to work with you as that empowerment coach. So take us on that journey. How do you meet your clients, as well as what does it look like as far as preparing them to be more effective and impactful public speakers?
Yeah. So how do I engage with them? So this is great. And this is something that I really have prided myself and continue to pride myself and feel proud of. The people that find me on social media, do you know what they say to me? They say, Renee, you're the same. Like, you don't sound one way on LinkedIn and another way on Instagram and another way on TikTok. Like, I've been watching you and I see that you are the same. And when they say that to me, and I've had at least 3 clients find me that way, I say to them, well, what is it that you noticed about that? And they say that you are the same person. And so it's great to be able to start the conversation, to be able to ask them, how do you feel you sound when you're speaking here or speaking there? And then they start to diagnose themselves and go, oh, yeah, I know that when I'm with my colleagues, I feel like I need to sound more professional, or I need to sound more executive like, or whatever. So I hope that answers that part. How they also find me is from the master classes. I try to do master classes at least 4 to 5 times a year through certain programs that allow people in the community at all levels to sign up and listen to my message. And a lot of times people at the leadership level, because they do care about self-development and learning, will find me that way. They also find me by being on the virtual stages that I'm invited on, or the podcasts that I'm on. And I am speaking more to, audiences, leadership, women's leadership groups. I just spoke with the Rotary Club yesterday. I'm speaking with the Women's Business Association next week. They have local chapters all over the country. So I really am trying to speak to as many leaders as possible in different forums, in different ways. I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what do your coaching sessions look like? How does that, and how much time does it take to prepare a person for the stage?
Oh gosh. So yeah, so the coaching program I have, is actually for people that aren't necessarily looking to be public speakers. I am trying to share with people how everyone, regardless of where you're at, what level of a title or hierarchy in your job or your career, that everyone could be of influence. And if you want to be of influence, I also am trying to get out the message that you can be of influence. It doesn't matter what role you're in. And that's what I think the perception is too. A lot of people think that they can only be great at this if they're high level. And that's not the case. You can be influential in any capacity, in any role. So within the program that I have a few programs. I have a 3-month transformative journey, and then I have a 2-month and a 1-month express coaching program. And then I work one-on-one with leaders who just maybe need help with, I'm writing a speech and they feel stuck with writing the speech, or they feel stuck with delivery. I do one-to-one private sessions with them. And what do I do with them from the very beginning is exactly what I told you was tip number 1 I wanted your audience to write down. Let's start with our why. Why do you want to speak? Why do you need to speak? What was the first experience or a triggering experience you had when you needed to speak? You know what happens, Teresa? For many people, this becomes a very therapeutic exchange of uncovering and discovering the blocks that people have based on being told, you're too quiet when they were young, you're too this, you don't speak up enough. And we carry some of those things into our adulthood, which is what makes so many people afraid to launch into even the notion that they can be a great storyteller, that they can be a great communicator, because it's this notion of either I'm great at it or I'm not great at it. And I'm here to blow the lid off of that. So we do that from the very beginning of discovering what is your why, number 1. Number 2, what are the blocks that you've had? What messages have you been told? And then we start to uncover what it looks like to communicate differently by tapping into joys and passions and things we care about. Because guess what? When we start delving into those things, we actually start feeling our message instead of just talking about our message. And that's what I do in my coaching. I take people down the journey of feeling through language so that it no longer becomes in your head of what do I need to say, but it's what am I feeling about this or that, this product, this idea, and how do I transmit that feeling into the right words so that I'm authentic or so that my clients are authentic. I hope that helps.
Absolutely, it absolutely does. And speaking in that space of authentic, as I live here in the Southeast U.S., and I know that one of the mantras is that people like to work with people that they know, they like, and that they trust. How do you in your line of work, how I know individuals, they can see you on social media, they see you on stage and all of these wonderful places, but how do you establish that authentic trust with your clients?
Would you believe if I told you it starts before I even say a word? Would you believe that if I said that?
I believe it.
Yeah. See, everyone's in a rush when they're asked to speak. They get up there and they start speaking. It's like, what do people want? They want to be seen. They want to be heard. And when we get up in front of people, one of the things I've learned in my career is when I'm invited, I connect with people before I even say a word. Not that I'm looking at everyone in the eye, but I'm looking at my audience and nodding my head so they know I see you and I'm here to give you a gift. And I'm literally saying that in my mind, like, I'm here to give you something. And by creating that good energy, because I'm a firm believer that energy is everything, because we know, we've all experienced it when we're about to listen to someone. We go into a meeting, we walk in, up, the energy doesn't feel right, or up, I don't like how this feels. We become disconnected from that person right away. So authenticity, I do believe, has now become an overused word in the industry. So if I were to have to drill that down a bit in working with my clients, it's realizing you don't have to sound like anyone else. Everyone is trying to sound like someone else. Through our experiences, our knowledge, our gifts, our desire to be good leaders, that's enough. Then it becomes, how real am I going to be? To me, I prefer to use the word real than the word authentic. I feel like it demonstrates, I demonstrate it in an easier way to understand. Are you being real? Are you, when you're in front of this group, or are you trying to pretend to sound knowledgeable? Are you being real with how passionate you are about your message, or are you thinking so much about how you're going to sound and what are you going to say? It's really a heart versus head moment as communicators to really start. And that's what improv is. And that's why I use improv in all of my sessions with my clients. We build that improv muscle, which is the ability to speak on your feet and speak off the cuff and be ready to answer any question, even if you don't have the answer to it. We teach skills to help buy you more time, have you have time to gain your composure when you're asked a question you can't answer. I teach all of that. So again, I hope this answers the question. Authenticity is truly about, am I being in my head or am I being in my heart, and am I being with these people? And it starts before you say a word.
I love that, heart versus head. That is amazing. That is amazing. And you just said something that's really interesting just now, Renee. Everything that you're saying is amazing and interesting. But there was
Oh,
something that
thank
you absolutely. But there's something that you just said right now. I do know, even in this space, in this podcast space, while I do like to have a structure, I'm finding
right.
myself asking more and more organic questions as my guests,
Wonderful.
as they're expressing, and I'll come up with new questions. So a lot of times I don't even get to my list. So for those of us who may, whether for it's for myself or even for our listening audience, you said something about buying more time when you don't necessarily know how to respond. to a
Oh
question.
yeah.
Can you give us just
Oh,
maybe one secret tip
oh yeah.
for
Get ready
when
to
we
write
do get
down.
those improv questions? What is
Oh yeah.
a secret little tip to buy us more time to help us
And
restructure the
first thing,
structure a great
I
answer?
absolutely. I want to address something you just said, that you're working more on asking organic questions. The better we become as speakers, the better we become at listening. And those two go hand in hand. I have had pretty much every client that I've worked with say, wow, like I am more aware. I am listening better. Because when we listen truly, not listening for a reaction, but we're listening to respond, we we appear more natural because we're now listening for what we are curious about or for what we want to know more about instead of, okay, next question, let me hit my list. And then you're more authentic in your approach and conversations flow better because you're not so tied to being formal in your interview or formal with your question. So what are the things that work so well to buy time? If you're asked a question, when you're asked that question, you nod, like nod your head, and you say the following. But don't say, that's a great question, because that's overused. You nod your head and you say something to the effect of this, whatever you like. You know, I love when I'm asked this question. Or, or, wow, thank you so much for asking me that question. Or, I so appreciate when I'm asked this question. And if you don't know how to answer it, this is the perfect time to show your expertise by relating it to someone else, something else. I love when I'm asked this question because it reminds me of a situation that sounds similar. That's a great way to show your professional acumen about the subject without needing to say the words, I don't know, I don't have an answer for you. You're showing your expertise by saying, I love when I'm asked this because it really does remind me of a time when dot, dot, dot. And then you bring that person in through your story. There's so many great transitional statements. And if you forget all of that, there is nothing wrong at all with saying, thank you for asking me that question. Can you please repeat it again? Because now it shows your audience that you're really listening and you're really leaning in and you really want to answer the question in the right way. There's nothing worse than when you're asked a question and then they don't answer the question that you're asking. So take that moment, seek clarification that you understand the question if you don't understand the question. And that's another way to buy yourself time.
Absolutely. I love that. And thank you for giving us those few tips because, and what you said about that is so true because I know an individual like myself, I usually like to have my notes. I usually like to have a script. Usually like to know exactly what
Yep,
arena I'm going into, and I need to be prepared. But
yep,
I like that because it goes back to what you said, heart versus head. We actually, as speakers, we know more than we probably give ourselves credit to. What we have
yep.
developed is already in our hearts. And so sometimes if you're
Right.
married to the paper, it does sound like you're talking from your head. So I like
That's right.
this particular tip here because if you don't know the answer right off, or if it's not written down, it does make you tap into that space in yourself that I already know this information and let me just
Yeah,
speak from my heart here. So I love
that's
that.
right.
Thank you so much.
And
Thank you so
and
much for
give me a
giving us
minute.
that
Like give
guidance.
me right and give me a minute. Like the master of all communication, John Maxwell. He's my mentor, and I'd love to meet him someday. He's written 65 books about leadership and communication. And one of the things that he talks about all the time is the power of the pause. And it's one of the elements, one of the pillars of my program, teaching people that it's okay to stop talking. I don't care what title you're in, what role, people feel like they need to just keep talking, 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 never coming up for air. And by doing that, you're not allowing your audience to digest anything you've said. And that's why engagement is so important. Because if you're asked a question and you ask for them to repeat the question, you've actually done your audience a favor too, because sometimes they might not have heard the question in the right way either. So you're actually connecting to your audience without even realizing it, because you're leaning in to say, that's such a great question. Can you please repeat that? And now the audience is hearing it in a different way too. The more that we lean into pausing, listening to what is said, seeking clarification, seeking to understand, instead of just responding, goes such a long way. And that's one of the pillars that we do as I work with clients one-on-one.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. Now, Renee, as we prepare to start to downshift in our conversation, one of the things is that I absolutely believe that every woman is a leader, that has a controlling influence either over a
Mhm,
particular domain, a territory, a cause, a people, or a region.
mhm,
In your own
mhm.
words, what kind of leader would you say that you are?
Mm. You know, I was asked that recently and I didn't know how to answer the question because I have worked so hard to be the person I am. And when I started going back to my Google reviews, one of the things that people said most about this journey that they received was a heart-centered approach. So I would have to say that I am definitely a heart-centered leader. I truly believe that if we want to connect with people through language, the most important way we know, and we've known for the last 5,000 years when hieroglyphics started, is to feel, is to feel what you're saying, not just say what you need to say because you're in your head. Feel it. What does it mean for you? What does it really mean for you? Because then people really start to see this person telling the truth. Because as you said before, people buy anything, a service, a product, an idea from people they like and trust. Because people could care less about what you know, but it's about how you make them feel. So I would say I'm a heart-centered, warm, and inviting, compassionate leader.
Absolutely. I love that heart-centered, warm, and compassionate. And so, in that same vein, I believe all of that bubbles out of that vein of love. And as you've already figured out
Right.
by now with me, that
Yes, exactly.
I
That's
employ
right.
love as that ultimate success factor to renew women's leadership mindset with fresh fire and purpose. So I do believe that the effective power of love, it is that game changer. It's not just an emotion, but it gives us, I believe, a competitive edge so that we are innovative in our business, powerful in leadership, can fully be present for our teams or our stakeholders, knowledgeable about industry trends, or even benevolent in our community service. So, being that heart centered, warm, and compassionate leader that you are, how do you believe that love has tangibly shaped you as that heart centered, warm, and compassionate leader?
Hmm. I really do believe it's partially because of all of the adversity that I faced, all of the people who mistook me for who I really am, who thought I was a certain way because of the way I looked or because of my background or um, yeah, such a good question. I just would have to say I encountered a lot of bullying when I was young, a lot. And I mean a lot. I lived in New York City where there were gangs. I mean, I'm not kidding, like hardcore. And I had to really just lean into to who I was and why was I put here? Like, what am I meant to do? Because I struggled for so many years not knowing until I started, speaking and fundraising. That really gave me the clarity. Um, yeah, it's a really good question. Did I answer it? I don't know. I hope I did.
I believe that you answered it, and thank you for giving us some insight there. Um, so Renee, How do you want future generations to benefit from the work that you're doing today?
Oh, you might make me cry now, Teresa, but okay. So,
It's okay.
you know, I grew up in a home where I had love from partial love, but there was no self-expression. There was no, people didn't address feelings, emotions, and there's no accident why I do the work that I do. I really believe I want to take a stand for self-expression in general and allow people to see that. And I know this sounds cliche, but it's so true. Your voice is your instrument. It matters. If you know something, you have something to teach. That means you are of influence. And I don't think enough people realize that they have something to teach, which is why even when there was a time, I was working with small children a couple of years ago, I had quite a few in my practice. I would have them teach me something. When you ask a 5-year-old to teach an adult something, their world shifts. They start to see themselves in a different way, like, wow, I get to teach an adult. I had no problem ever saying to a kid, you know what, you know a lot of things I don't know. And today we're going to focus on that. If we start treating others like that, start seeing we can learn from other people and lean into their knowledge, lead into their experiences. It allows people to grow into leadership because then they get to see that they have value, that they have a message, that they have something important to share for a reason. And I truly believe that that's going to help the future generations see that they can, again, cliche, they can make a difference. They can, but they have to step out with enough, what's the word? I don't like to use the word confidence, but confidence actually means with trust. It's a Latin word. Con means with, fidens means trust. That I really would love to see younger people start to have more self-trust. And again, we can question how we learn education. There's always an authority, there's a teacher. Students are not the authority. So we begin to then question, how do we, as we get older, start to lean into that voice to know that we have something to share. So that's what
That
I've
is
been
so
on a mission
powerful.
to do.
That is so powerful. And I like the way that you said that we all have something to teach. So this has been a huge teach moment for all of us on today,
Oh,
Renee.
I'm
You're so
so
awesome. You're
glad.
so awesome. So as
Thank
we
you. Thank
prepare
you.
to wind down, what tip, what encouragement or resource would you give to someone um, that they want to step into a dream career or a dream business that's always been on their heart to do, but they just haven't taken the steps to do it, or they
Mm-hmm.
just haven't
Yeah.
made that quite a reality? While we're in
Yep.
this teach moment, in this teach vein,
Yep.
what tip, encouragement, or resource would you give to them to say, let's
Yep.
go ahead and jump in and get to work on
Yep.
that?
And again, I'm being as transparent as I can be. I dealt with this for 20 years because I really didn't know what my why was. When I established what was my why was to help others who are struggling. And it didn't matter that they earned more than me. It didn't matter that they had higher titles than me. I just knew that I had something to help people with. And when I became really clear on my why, I had no clue that I would be attracting vice presidents and high-level dentists. I coached my mayor for over a year in my city. I had no clue that these are the people that would come to me, that these people at high levels need my help. So it's just really starting to know that the value that you offer is greater than any self-judgment or criticism, because that is your why. So you have to get really clear on the why. And I don't care if you put it into a voice memo on your phone and you record it every day. I don't care if you write it into a journal or a post-it note or whatever visual you need. What is my why? Because again, once we know the end, that gives us, it actually propels us to have more self-trust because we are committed to the vision and not getting caught up in everything else. I think some of the tips, that I shared with the, their free gift that they'll get today. by going on to that link is really going to start helping them. They won't find those tips on Google. I think they're really heart-centered and really start to help them lean in to all of this in a different way.
Absolutely. And that's a great segue. So you do have top 10 tips to influence any audience as our complimentary gift to the listening
Yep.
audience on today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, awesome. And that's why, see, I didn't call it like not 10 top public speaking tips because this is for anyone who's looking to be of influence. If you have something that you care deeply about and it's on your heart, it's going to stay there, trust me, which is why my dream stayed on my heart for 20 years. And I feel very fortunate to have woken up every day to be able to live in alignment with who I am and what I'm meant to be doing. So those 10 tips are really more centered on how to be more of you, how to be more of who you are and what you bring with your passion and your interest and your knowledge and your experience to see that, yes, you can be of influence. It's not equatable to a title or a level in a hierarchy or a salary. It's just not. And that's the shift. It's a mental shift that allows us to become better at storytelling, better at feeling our message, being able to share it, and so that we can connect with other people in any way we want, whether it's to get that next job, get that promotion, get that raise. Because the one thing that is really true, Teresa, people who speak more earn more. And LinkedIn actually did research in 2024 that the number one skill that they are looking for to groom people in leadership and for certain jobs is communication. It always will be. It's never going to change. So the more that people start leaning into the thing they're most scared to do, lean into the discomfort, only where we grow, right? Gotta tiptoe in, dip our feet, take the action, do what makes you uncomfortable. That's the only way. And I'm here to help for anyone who needs support.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, Renee, it's been such an honor to be able to spend time with you and to be able to glean from the value that you offer us and just being a great teacher for us on today. It was such an honor to spend some time. So, as we prepare to
Same.
close, what are your final words for our audience, for our listening audience? What are final words to take us forward into 2025?
Oof, I got the chills when you said that, Teresa. My final word. I never stop talking, so I don't have final words. Um, my final word. I'd say after you've listened to this, what resonated for you the most? Like what really spoke to you? Because again, the more we listen to messages for what is important to us and start writing that down, we become clearer on what it truly is. We're so quick to just think we need to have all the answers. Start being more reflective on the things that you hear. Start being more conscious of the people that you're listening to that you become disconnected from. What makes you disengaged from listening to someone? And are you willing to be vulnerable enough to ask yourself, am I doing those things? And then start leaning into the people that you enjoy listening to. What is it about them? Do you find something in common with those people? Whether it's an influencer, whether it's a leader who's passed away or not. What is it about them? And see if you can find any patterns. Because the things that we most often admire in other people are things that we wish to become or wish we had. So start leaning in to discover a little bit more about yourself. What is the leader? Who is the leader that you wish to be in whatever capacity? If again, it is as an entrepreneur, are you looking to promote yourself more? Who do you look up to? Who do you want to be like? Not sound like, but be like. Because we know that if we try to sound like anyone else, we've already lost our sense of being real, or the buzzword, be authentic. So I would start there. Start there.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. Well, Renee, thank you so much for being with us on today. It was such a great honor to have you. Well,
Uh,
ladies, we want to say thank you for joining us. Remember, you can connect with Renee by visiting her on her website at www.stepintoyourvoice.com. You may also connect with her via email at info@stepintoyourvoice.com and give her a call at 954-295-7433. And also be sure to connect with Renee on LinkedIn, Facebook, as well as Instagram at Renee Hope Cooper, and connect with her on TikTok at Step Into Your Voice. And for those of you that want to schedule that coffee chat, you may do so by visiting calendly.com/Renee Hope Communications coaching /quick chat coffee talk. And please let us not forget to take full advantage of Renee's complimentary gift, which is top 10 tips to influence any audience. You may find that information at renee.cooper.myflowdesk.com /top-10-tips to influence any audience. And we're going to put this information in the chat so that you will have all of this great information to take advantage of these wonderful gifts and to schedule that coffee chat. Now, leaders, do you have an important story that would inspire others to step into their dream career or business? If so, check the bio to learn how to become one of my special guests. And also, the holidays are over, but it's still the most wonderful time of the year. And I want to help you celebrate your loved ones and team with the My Journey to Wholeness book series and gift collection featuring my new book, My Journey to Wholeness, Love the Success Factor. So please visit my author's corner at Teresa K page at squarespace.com to check out my book gift sets, home decor, glassware, journals, sportswear, and so much more, all designed with inspiring messages to remind you of what love can empower you to do. So please check the bio to learn more. So we want to say thank you for joining in for another episode of the Women's Leadership Mindset Series. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, here's to the journey, and let's move forward.